What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the HLTB podcast. I am your host, Josh, aka Abatage, and I am joined, as always, by Paula, aka Pokepaw.
Hello there.
And we have an exciting episode today because it's an exciting time in HLTB. We're going to talk about the stuff we've been playing and completing. We haven't been retiring anything yet, so that streak is still going. But, Paula, did you know that just recently HLTB surpassed 500,000 users?
Goddamn, that's 500,000 right there.
I know. It's even more than that now, but yeah, within the last week or so, someone noted on the forum as well that it was over 500,000 users, which is huge. That's a lot of people.
That's a lot of people, but it should be more people. Like the site is super useful. It's a lot of fun to just talk about games in the forums. And I'm not really trying to make our subscribers that may or may not already be in the site to join the site. But anyway,
yeah. And
I swear, Everdread doesn't pay us for advertisement. We just love the site that much.
There's no shady deals here. But with that in mind, our topic for today, we're going to talk about HLTB itself and how we use it, and the kind of, everyone uses it a bit differently is one of the great things about HLTB, and it's very flexible, and, Everdread has built it in a way that people can use it in different ways with different ideas about things, and it all kind of manages to work together and still be useful. So we're going to talk about how we use it and also how we have approached it and how we use our backlogs and all that kind of stuff because, well, I think it's interesting, and it's always interesting to see how other people do use it and what kind of differences there are, because you get different ideas and you get different ways that you could use it yourself that you haven't thought of, because it is quite flexible and it is really well put together in that sense. So yeah, we'll talk about that after we've gone through the games we've been playing. And Paula, why don't you kick us off, because you've got a single completion to my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, or 8 that I'm going to talk about. So let's save the listeners from my voice for a little bit. And yeah, what have you been playing? What have you completed, rather?
Well, spoiler alert, but this one is one that you've completed too. So this is going to be an interesting conversation, or maybe not. So I've gone through what I think is the last single player game that has been released for now by Rusty Lake, and it's called Underground Blossoms. And it is quite an interesting game because things kind of come full circle on it. It's as per the usual Rusty Lake formula, a point and click game. And in this particular game, you kind of like go through different stations, since you're like going from station through station via a train or a metro or underground train. I don't know how you call those there.
Yeah, train.
A train. A regular old train. So usually like you have some sort of objective on a given station, and then you have to find the ticket for the next station. And it goes like that for, I want to say, about 7-ish. Well, I can just look it up on my...
Yeah, I think it was about 6 or 7, I want to say.
Yeah, about 7 chapters that are the stations. And it is quite an interesting take, I gotta say. Once you finish like the main story, you're given like the freedom to go through all the stations, like in whichever order you please, and navigate and find the thing you're supposed to find. And then you kind of go for what is supposed to be, I'm gonna say, like the true ending, but I'm not even sure at this point. Rusty Lake games are weird. I'm just gonna say an alternative scenario.
Yeah, there's an ending after the ending.
Which is kind of interesting, because I don't think that's been a thing in a while, like in Rusty Lake games, if it has. But also it's double weird because of how things come full circle. I totally recommend this one. I'm not gonna say anything more than I'm supposed to, because it is a very interesting experience. And for any Rusty Lake fans, I think this is first of all like one of the better games in terms of puzzles, or in terms of how logic connects in a way.
Yeah.
Though it still has the Rusty Lake overall lore into account and the overall mythos on it, and it still has kind of like a twisted logic. Like you'll feel right at home here if you played other Rusty Lake games. So yeah, that's my single completion for the week. So
well, I also completed it, as you mentioned, and the only other thing I'd want to add to it is that I thought the puzzles were not so much the most difficult, but perhaps a bit more complex than previous games.
Yeah,
where I actually found myself taking some more notes and things because there were things to reference that weren't so easy to reference, if that makes sense. Whereas in previous games, sometimes you'd see something, you'd go, oh, that's the answer to the puzzle, and you just remember it and you'd go and solve the puzzle. Whereas in this one, there was a lot of stuff where it's like, oh, I actually need to write that down because I'm going to forget because it's too complex. Yeah. Or especially in the quote-unquote end game, there's one puzzle in particular which just took forever. And I actually looked up a guide for because it was way too complex. And and it's the kind of puzzle that you need to basically look up a guide for because you're never going to figure it out on your own. For Paula, it's the one with the videotapes. If you did that one.
Oh, yeah, I did that one. Yeah, for that one, that's the one I needed the guide for because I was like, okay, how the fuck am I supposed to do that? But if you went through the cubes too, there was a nice little reference there too.
Yeah, totally. And it's without spoiling anything, it's the kind of puzzle where it's a bit of an ARG as well. So that's why you probably wouldn't be able to figure it out on your own because you have to kind of leave the game and look at other stuff to figure it out.
Yeah.
But very specific things that I didn't even know existed. So yeah, used a guide for the end bit, but for the rest of it, I really enjoyed it. And I really enjoyed the only other aspect to it, which I thought was really interesting, that isn't really a spoiler because you figure it out really quickly. But as you travel between each station, it kind of passes time as well. So you're going between stations, but then but different stations are in a different period of time than other stations. So it kind of feels a bit like seasons in a way like that as well, because there's some stuff you can kind of set up for later and then come back to, or, you know, that kind of thing where it's time manipulation kind of stuff. And yeah, I thought it was really good. It was not necessarily my favorite in the series, but like you said, Paula, it really does kind of wrap itself up at the end and go full circle with all the other games. So I'm really glad that I did play all the other games before this one, because especially like the Cube Escape collection stuff, because that comes into play as well. And yeah, it's just very satisfying by the time you get to the end of it. And
yeah, we should probably play the Pass Within, but also we should do a spoiler cast on Rusty Lake because holy crap, there's a lot to unpack on all the lore of the Cube Escape series.
Well, and I'd say, once we've played Pass Within, which we should sort out a time soon for. Once we played that one, we should definitely do a big spoiler cast because it's kind of been a theme over the last few months as well. So
yeah,
and they're all great games, so and they all connect so nicely. So
yeah. Definitely.
There was even like a blatant, just not relevant part of the game, but just a reference to like some of the other games here and there during Underground Blossom, where you'd like find something and it would have the name of another game on it or something. You're like, I know what that means. And yeah, very good game, very good game. But I've also been playing a bunch of other good games. I finished Lost Horizon, which I've spoken about plenty before. It's pretty much more of the same, but I finished it. It's a, 2010 kind of era point and click. The story is kind of like a bit funny. The things I liked about it was that it was all very voice acted and well done. The writing gets a bit iffy here and there, and I don't know if it's because of the setting, because it's set in like, 1940s kind of, or not even 40s. I think it might be World War One. No, it's World War Two because it's Nazis, of course. But it's like early war, so it's 1940 kind of ish. And there's a few lines in there which are kind of the era, I want to say, but as in there's a few like quite sexist kind of lines in there and jokes as well. And it felt a bit odd because it's like the rest of the game doesn't really matter that it's that era. That's just kind of where it's set. And then it throws out something which is obviously kind of acceptable for the times, but not for these times, but without a real purpose. Like, I don't mind that kind of stuff because I think, yeah, we should remember the dumb things we did in the past. And if it is accurate, that's cool. And, you know, we don't necessarily want to say it's good, but hey, that's how people spoke and that's how they thought. So fine, that's cool. We've learned better these days and we know better. But it was just kind of a bit off-putting because there didn't seem to be a reason to have that in there in this game and to have those kind of old-fashioned lines and stuff, because it's not like the rest of the game was leaning hard on it either. So I don't know. It kind of went a bit weird in the end, but I'm glad I finished it because overall it was a fun point and click. And like at the end of the game, there's a full-on kind of boss battle with, it's an old game now anyway, but there's basically a big boss battle between like Nazis and dragons and things, and it goes kind of mental, and it's good fun in that sense. But yeah, I finished it. I'll probably play the second one because I already have it from a bundle and all that. But yeah, not like the best point and click I've ever played, but definitely not the worst. I also, in less interesting games, I played some more Poems and Codes, which I've spoken about before, because they released a free update, which is a free content update, where they basically added 50 more poems to the game. So that's 50 more poems to kind of crack the cipher. This is the like poem-related puzzle game where you have to like substitute letters for different letters and figure out what the cipher is. So you get a page of like gobbledygook, basically, like random letters. But through a substitution cipher, you can kind of figure out what they say, and it ends up saying the poem. So if you're into poetry, it's fun. If you're into cracking ciphers, it's fun. It's better if you're into both. So, but yeah, they just had a free update of 50 new poems into the game. So I just played through those and, you know, enjoyed myself. I also finished off the mobile game, which I started a while ago, called Scriptic Dead Man's Phone, Season 1 Redman, because there is a Season 2, which after finishing Season 1, I am not going to play, I will say. This one was basically, it's like I have spoken about it a while ago, but I was looking at what games there were on Netflix for mobile, because they've got a whole bunch that I didn't even realize were there. But I do have a Netflix subscription, so I thought, I'll try out some stuff. And this was cool.
I totally forgot that they had games on their subscription as well.
Yeah. And I've always kind of just ignored it, but there's some actual recognizable titles on there. There's like, you know, Valiant Hearts is on there. Terra Nil, which I played recently, is on there. Yeah, there's a bunch of stuff when you actually look at it that's recognizable if you are a gamer. So I thought I'd look at some of the other stuff as well. And this was cool, and I'm glad I played it, but it kind of lost me in the end, because it's one of those games where it's a detective mystery game where you have to, at the very beginning, a character dies, and through looking at their phone and chatting with people and talking to forensics characters and other detectives and all that kind of stuff, you end up piecing together what happened, who's responsible, and solving the case. Cool. But it does that thing that I hate in a game which is trying to pretend like you have choice, because you really don't in this game. It's very, very linear. And there's a part to it where basically you take actions, which you have to take because to progress the game, you have to do these things. But then you get scolded for them later in the game for making those choices. Because essentially, I mean, without spoiling anything, you share evidence with people who you're not meant to in order to find out more information. And you can't progress the game without doing that. So you have to do that. It's a linear process in the game. But then later on, there's like a quote unquote bad ending where you get told off for doing that and how illegal that is and blah, 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 and how dare you and rah, rah, rah. And it doesn't quite land when you haven't actually made that decision. Like the severity of it or the seriousness of what you've done doesn't really relate when it's something that the game has forced you to do. Like if I had actually chosen to do that or had the choice not to, because there were plenty of times where I didn't do the choice and I did everything else and then realized that I had to do that choice if I wanted to progress everything else, because it ended up being the only thing I had left to do. But I was like, I don't really want to do it because I don't think this is right or the right thing to do. And yeah. But no, the game forced me to do it. But then the game told me off for doing it later. And I'm like, that's dumb.
It's like, what am I supposed to do if you don't let me progress in any other way?
Exactly. And I'm like, yeah, haha, very clever. But there is essentially, from a purely mechanical standpoint, it breaks down to there's one decision in the last act which changes the ending significantly. Like you get the good or the bad ending. But other than that, everything you do is pointless and linear. Essentially, you're just along for the ride, which is fine. I don't mind linear games either. Like, I don't need choice and everything. But when it's trying to make me feel like I have heaps of choice and then telling me off for making the wrong choices, and I'm like, but I only did exactly what I was allowed to do or what I had to do. It kind of, didn't land as hard. And that's why I'm not really interested. There's a whole other season 2, which is like another story, another mystery to solve, all that kind of thing. And I'm just like, couldn't be bothered because it was fairly lengthy as well. Like I think it took me about 6 hours to get through, which is a lot for a story-heavy mobile game because that's a lot of sitting on the toilet. But honestly, that's when I'm playing mobile games.
I wasn't expecting that, but well, it makes sense.
So, it was good as far as it was an interesting idea. And I really liked the whole thing of, and we've spoken about this before, it's a game on my mobile, and the whole premise of the game is that you're someone using a mobile phone. So all the interface and everything is very realistic, or it makes sense because you're on a mobile phone with a touch screen. And they really utilize that a lot, and that was kind of the best part of the whole game. But other than that, it was story was just a bit of a letdown, which was a shame because it was very story heavy. But anyway, speaking of then other games which were much more exciting than any of that, I finished a game called Maquette or Maquette. I like to say Maquette, which was on Game Pass. And if anyone has Game Pass, easy recommend, go play Maquette. It's awesome. It's like I think it's called like a recursive puzzle game, because the whole idea is that you're in a room or a space, and within that space is a model of that whole map. And so hang on, let me get this right. In the center of the area, there's like a model sized version of the area that you're in. And then the area that you're in is about the same kind of ratio version inside another area that's even bigger. And so on and so forth. It's like the Russian stacking dolls kind of thing. But it just goes forever, and it in both ways. Like inside the model area is a smaller model of the area, and they all affect each other realistically. So if you drop a ball or like a marble, let's say, in the model-sized area, a larger and related-sized marble will appear in your area, but it's obviously much, much larger because it's not the size of the model, it's real-sized, and you then have this big object in your area and an even bigger object in the bigger area, and so on and so forth. So the whole idea is that you're playing through a story for starters. The whole point of the thing is that you're playing through a story which is essentially a relationship story between two people throughout the game. Like they meet, they fall in love, they, start a life together, all that kind of thing, and essentially what happens down the road. And it's kind of about your character going into that relationship and then dealing with the things that happen in that relationship and, after that relationship and all that kind of stuff, and kind of going on a little self-discovery kind of growing up journey. But the way you do that is through these puzzles, because to access each area of the map, you have to solve puzzles. So one of the very first ones is you go into an area and you need to get across essentially a bridge, but there's no bridge there. There's a big gap and you can't get across the bridge. So you're like, oh, I can't get across there. But to get into that area, you had to find a key, and you use the key to unlock a gate to get into that area. So you grab the key, you go back to the model-sized version of where you are, and you can use the key to lay it across the gap that you're trying to get across, and then go back to the real-sized version, and there's a big old key sitting on the gap, and you can walk across the gap. You've built yourself a bridge. So it's that kind of thinking where you have to, think of small things, but how can they affect things large, and vice versa. And even down to stuff like then you start messing with size, because in one point you've got like a little, and they look like dollhouse pieces, but you've got like a staircase that you can place wherever you want. And in one point in the model size version, you kind of put the staircase next to a fence. And then in the real size, it's got a real size staircase, and you can walk up the staircase and jump over the fence. So cool. But then if you pick up the big staircase and go over to the model sized area, you can place the big staircase next to a house. So then in the real size area, you've got a double sized staircase. And what you find is then you can kind of climb up the edge of the staircase to get up to a second floor of the house, even though the staircase is like way too big and it's like a giant staircase to you. But because of that, you can like go up the sideboard and, you know, make your way around and do that. So there's lots of like mind bending kind of using different sizes for stuff. It reminded me a bit of like the Superliminal, which is another game that uses size and perspective and things a lot.
Oh, that's another game of mindfuckery, yeah.
Yeah. And I haven't played it, but I've seen that one played, so I do plan on playing it. But yeah, it kind of made me think of that, or at least you're using that kind of part of your brain. And yeah, just really satisfying puzzles, because it's the way it's been put together as a game is like really cool. Like even down to there's this one point where, minor spoilers, but it's just a cool element that's not going to really spoil anything. But at one of the last areas that you're in, because you go from area to area as well as you kind of pass through time of the story. But one of the last areas you're in, the model version is a model of, essentially you're in like a gazebo kind of, or a, you know, a one room kind of area. And if you pick it up in the model, you're actually picking up the place that you're in. So if you pick up the thing in the model and turn it around, the whole area that you're standing in gets picked up and turned around, and the whole world around you is like spinning around because you're turning it in front of you. And it's just really cool how they managed to code all that together and make it work. And yeah, very, very cool game. Very cool puzzle game as well. Like, just the puzzles are very unique and original, and very exciting game to play, because as you play through it and discover things, it's like, oh, I can do that. Oh, cool. I'm going to try to do this. Or like, this is a really wacky idea. Oh, but it worked. Okay, cool. That's really good. And it's that kind of game. And yeah, very, very enjoyable, very much easy recommend for anyone who can have access to it. I think it's on PlayStation Plus as well, I want to say, but I think it's very available in places. So yeah, that was Maquette.
I was thinking like, because you named Superliminal, wasn't that one the one that also had like non-Euclidean spaces, like a 3-room house?
I think so, yeah. Like I said, I haven't played it, but I plan to.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's the one. Yeah, like that is the kind of game that I want to play, but it hurts so much watching like the trailers for it or the videos for it, because like it makes no sense, but it somehow does make sense. I don't know.
Yeah,
kind of weird.
Well, and that's where Maquette has that same thing where, from watching stuff about Superliminal, there are moments where I think, how the hell did they even code that? Like, it really fucks with your perspective and how you see space in such a way that you kind of almost sit there going, how did you even make this? Like, you know, and that sort of stuff I love, because it kind of really sparks your brain and your creativity a bit.
Definitely.
Yeah. I played a game called Return to Grace, which is fairly new, I think. Again, I think it was on Game Pass. It's essentially one of those like walking simulator narrative heavy games. It's all about the story and exploring the area or the map, for want of a better word, or exploring the game to resolve a story. And there are puzzles along the way that you have to kind of solve, but none of them are very difficult or challenging. But the premise is that it's a little bit abstract. It's very heavy sci-fi. Essentially, there's an artificial intelligence called Grace, who has been basically built and is seen as the answer to all things in the universe. But Grace has kind of stopped responding or working or talking to anyone. So you essentially crash land on a planet where Grace is, like the AI is, and find your way to a settlement, like a city where people have been living, and you find out worshipping this AI and all that kind of stuff. But you encounter other artificial intelligences who are all kind of split personalities of Grace but individuals. So like one of the first ones you meet is one called Control. So that AI is all about control and kind of telling you what to do, and everything's very, this is what we have to do, and you have to go do that, and you have to go do this, and then do that. There's another one called Logic, who, guess what, is very logical, and everything is like super logical. Like she cannot think without logic, and so everything you do and talk to her about is obviously very logical, but very cold as well, and, you know, calculated and not necessarily very empathetic, because there's another one that is pure empathy. So you meet another AI that's pure empathy, and they're the one who's like, well, how are you feeling and what's going on, and, you know, blah, 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 and thinking about your position as a human and all this kind of stuff. And like a good example is there's one point at the very beginning where you pick up the empathy AI, and the empathy AI controls the oxygen and environmental features for the space station that you're in. And so she kind of calibrates it to you personally by talking to you and finding out things about you and all this kind of stuff, and ends up arguing with the logic AI, because the logic AI is like, well, you only need, you know, X percentage mix of these chemicals and humans can live and it's fine. And the empathy AI is like, well, no, but that's not very comfortable, and like, you know, that'll be a shit life and blah, blah, blah. So we need to kind of make it better. And, you know, but they can't understand each other because they're different perspectives in that sense. And the reason I say that so much and point that out is because that's kind of the central basis of the game that you end up playing through. And also the best thing about the game is how close they stick to these kind of archetypes for the AI, because then eventually you go down the track and you start mixing different AIs to create other AIs. So you might mix control with empathy, and you get a blend, which is obviously, I think, is playing more of like a mother kind of role as an AI. Like they want to look after you and control you and all that, but they have empathy. So they're not as hardcore as like the straight up control AI. And so you end up blending all these different AIs to get different results. And that then takes you into different areas of the story and tells you different things about the history and stuff. And I'm not going to spoil the story at all because it's actually pretty cool. But yeah, you kind of play some light puzzles along the way and explore and uncover the world and all that kind of thing. And the reason I loved it so much is because I love games where there's just I love narrative games like this where there's so much lore and world building and things have happened that you can discover on top of like solving puzzles and stuff. So obviously there's something that's happened and that's why you're there, and you resolve that by the end of the story. But discovering it along the way is actually the real joy of the game and the point of the game. So yeah, Return to Grace was a very good, not quite walking simulator because there's enough puzzles and stuff to keep you on your toes, but it's pretty straightforward and it is very much a story game. So yeah, definitely worth playing if you're into that kind of thing. And one more that I completed was actually a platformer called Evan's Remains.
Oh yeah, you haven't talked about that one.
This was one that I had it was a free game on Prime. And so I had it on my Amazon game launcher and I thought, that looks interesting, I'll try that. And it's essentially a puzzle platformer, but you can skip all the puzzles if you want. So that's cool. And it's not really, it's again, heavily focused on story, not gameplay or mechanics, I guess. But the mechanics are fun. Like, I ended up not actually skipping any of the puzzles. So the basis of the game is that you play as a girl who is on an island to look for a dude called Evan. That's all you know to begin with, is that you're looking for a guy called Evan, and that's that. So as you kind of progress on the island, it's a 2D kind of platformer, so you go left to right as you do, and you find these quote-unquote monoliths, which you have to solve in order to get past. So it's the kind of platforming where you jump on a platform and other platforms disappear, and then you jump off the platform and other platforms appear. So you've got to kind of like jump on and off different platforms to kind of set it up in a way that when you do actually jump on it, the right ones appear, and then you can jump on those and get over the big barrier at the other side and get past that puzzle. And they get more and more complex because different platforms might teleport you to different platforms. Other platforms might make other platforms move. Other ones might appear or disappear. And you have to kind of, the whole time it's just basically setting up a sequence so that you can jump through and get to high enough to then jump over the barrier at the end and move on. So that's the gameplay essentially. And they get more and more complex, and some of them are a bit of a head scratcher, but ultimately the whole game took me like 2.5 hours all up anyway. And I didn't skip anything. But you can if you want, is the option. You can get to any puzzle and hit like start and skip, and you can just jump straight past the puzzle. So if you want to just play it for story, you can. And the story is actually quite interesting because I was a bit surprised. I thought it would be a bit whatever, but it turned out to be it's quite the visual novel. There's a lot of reading involved because you discover things on this island and you talk to different characters, and there's like time dimension shifting and parallel worlds and traveling through portals and things that ends up happening that, there's a whole lot of story to uncover. And I'm not even going to begin to try and explain it without spoiling it. So it's just the kind of thing I'd say, look at the game. If it looks like something that's up your alley, it's a good one. And it surprised me with how good it was, because I thought it was I thought it'd be like, let's see how I go with this free platformer that I got. And I probably won't enjoy it because it's not really my kind of genre, but I ended up enjoying it enough and having a good time. And yeah, it's very, like I say, it's very much more visual novel than it is platformer, because you spend most of your time reading dialogue or, talking to other people or exploring things. But I liked that, and it was very good. So Evans Remains is another one I'd recommend, especially if you've picked it up for free on Prime. No brainer. It's worth your time though. And yeah, that's all I've completed now.
Those were a lot of completions.
Yeah, none of them were very long, but especially Maquette and Return to Grace were like super good. Like definitely, and Underground Blossom as well, but that kind of goes without saying. But yeah, Maquette and Return to Grace were both games that I'd highly recommend, especially if you're on Game Pass, because it's, again, easy peasy. But yeah, I'm going to shut up. Paula, tell us about what you've been playing. What's happening underground into Terraria?
Okay, let me look through the page where everything starts, because we've been playing Terraria with my boyfriend, as we've been like pretty much on the last few weeks, like pretty much every day, because this game is quite addictive. Mm-hmm. So as I said last week, we were missing one of the mechanical bosses, which we defeated this week. So we defeated Skeleton Prime. So we got the achievement Buckets of Bolts for defeating all 3 mechanical bosses. And we also finally got the Pickaxe Axe, and we got the Drax Attack achievement for that. And the thing about the Pickaxe Axe is that it functions as both a pickaxe and an axe. No shit. It's in the name. But also, it has a 200 plus pickaxe power that we needed to start mining Chlorophyte, which is a green mineral found in the jungle. So we went to do that and got the achievement for the synthesis because of it. And we also found life fruit, which is the next step into maxing out our health. Because up until now we use life crystals, but once you are at 200 health, you can no longer use life crystals. So we went, and you have to start using like the life fruit that you gather.
Mm-hmm.
Funnily enough, the achievement for that is called Get Alive, because why not? And also, we decided to summon and defeat the Queen Slime. I don't remember if I said this like last week, but we tried battling the Queen Slime, but now that and got pretty much decimated in a matter of seconds. But after getting like new equipment and new armor and new weapons and all that jazz, we pretty much murdered her and got the achievement Just Desserts, because why not? And then we started like our the grueling mission of sorting out the chest. Because in our base, we have, at this point, we've been pretty much grabbing everything on chest, and if we need more space, we just put another chest right by the other chest.
Yep.
And besides just having like a chest for other metal bars and gems and one for potions, we don't really have a method to this madness. So on what's the date of this one? On March the 4th, we started sorting out the chest of our base, which will be like a running theme like in the next couple of days. Well, I was AFK for about 2 to 3 days because of uni stuff. But once we went back to Terraria, we kind of forgot we were supposed to be cleaning up the chest. Or conveniently forgot because after a couple of hours, your brain just melts and you're not sure what blocks are anymore. So I decided to go fishing and completed some quests from the angler. So I got the Servant Trainer for completing the first quest. And then weird things happened. Apparently, there's an event in Terraria, like just as you can get a Blood Moon, where you get like more powerful enemies, such as the Blood Tripper or like the werewolves and stuff like that. There's solar eclipses, and it was a nightmare. Like you have vampires, Frankenstein monsters, some things, etc.
Yeah.
We managed to survive without making a graveyard, I think. Although I'm not sure about that one. And we got the achievement, Kill the Sun, because we survived the solar eclipse. Then we realized that we could get like very interesting materials from solar eclipses because there are enemies that only show up there. So for a while we were like, hey, how the hell do you summon a solar eclipse? Because you can use like a blood tier to summon like a blood moon. So more on that later because we actually managed to do that.
Cool.
And then we went to the jungle to find Plantera, and well, we kind of died on the first attempt. On the second attempt, we actually won. So we got that in the Great Southern Plant Kill. And with
Nice.
that, we actually unlocked like more stuff on the jungle. But, I mean, on the dungeon. Like more enemies and more drops and stuff like that. Also, like sometime in the solar eclipse, I got a demonite kite. So I got an achievement out of that because if you fly a kite when it is very windy, you actually get an achievement called a rather blaster day. And that's just
Cool.
miscellaneous stuff. So we continued sorting out the chest for a while. So we started making like a crafting room. We also have a potion room, and recently we made a kitchen. More on that later. But also we made like a smithy. So now we have like the gems, the ores, and the metal bars all separated in different chests for more convenient access. And we also have a chest only for like the mana stars, the crystal hearts, and the the shooting stars. And because you can use those for crafting too. You can make like these little lamps that allow you to regenerate mana faster or regenerate health faster, which have been like a game changer for blood moons, solar eclipses, and mechanical bosses. At some point, we decided, fuck it, we're going to dungeon because we've been starting chests for too long. We got a couple of achievements during the grave because sometimes some minions will drop like a very powerful weapon or something like that. I don't know what I got, but I got the achievement robbing the grave because of that. And then we were looking for marble caves, because my boyfriend needed an item that only a Medusa will drop, and those only spawn near marble caves.
Mm-hmm.
And they're kind of like mini biomes in a way, and they're like few and far between. I kind of destroyed one of those because I went crazy with the marble, because it was like, hey, a new material, let's do something cool with it, and I mined out like an entire biome. So we had to look for more marble caves because of my my foolishness, I guess.
The
And
marble
in the way,
greed.
my greed, yeah. In the way I killed an nymph, I didn't even realize I killed a nymph, but I killed one. I got the achievement, the Severe Fools. And sometime between the solar eclipse and us trying to find Medusa, we got a new NPC that sells drones. Like, he sells drones and an accessory to see the world from the point of view from the drone. So
Cool.
I just started flying the drone and exploring like everything in the sky, because I haven't done that at that point yet. I got the achievement to infinity and beyond because I accidentally flew the drone into outer space, which is fun.
Yeah.
And I think that was the last time I even tried to fly the drone, because I got distracted with other stuff. At some point we were trying to get the desert key to open the desert chest on the dungeon, because I wanted like a new stronger minion to summon. Right now, my boyfriend has like two sets of armor and gear, one for melee combat and the other one for magic. And I decided to be a summoner, because having minions to fight for you is kind of fun, and I can do stuff without fighting, like, I don't know, like preparing a camp, or like building stuff without having to worry about minions, because without worrying about enemies, because my minions killed them for me. So I
Nice.
kind of was feeling that I needed like a stronger minion. It turns out the desert chest has a rod that allows you to summon a white tiger. I thought that was the coolest shit ever. The problem is you have to get the desert key. So to get the desert key, you have to kill like any enemy on the desert, pretty much. And it has like a very, very low chance of it spawning. So
Cool.
we went to the desert, put like an item to increase the number of mobs that appear. We also drank a battle potion to even increase further the amount of mobs that appear. And we said, hey, if we summon King Slime, each time you hit it, you get more slimes to appear. So that way we can just kill King Slime until we get an item. We might have killed around 25 to 30 King Slimes before we finally found the desert key. Like, there was like a flaw in our plan, and it was that we were doing like too much damage. And also, like, I didn't even have to do anything. Like, the spiders that I had at the time were doing like all the job for me. So I ended up just being the one picking up the items that the slimes drop.
Nice.
The good thing is that since King Slime can drop like a couple of items that are quite expensive, we got rich. We sold a lot of that shit and got like to the platinum tier of coins. So we were filthy rich for a while. And I had to use that platinum coin and 50 gold coins that I got to buy a new armor.
Nice.
And finally, I got my beautiful, beautiful white tiger. And you can only summon one of those because, holy crap, they are broken. They're very strong. And they kind of like go through walls. So now when I dig around, like, the tiger will go like to nearby caverns and just kill everything inside. I don't know. It is a very aggressive cat over there. And then we were looking like for good stuff we could get for our next boss. And it turns out there was like an enemy that you can fish out on the Blood Moon that drops another powerful stuff, and you kind of like summon, I think it was blood bats or something like that. I don't know. They look like glowing bats to me, but anyway. So we had our fair share of those blood tears that you use to summon the Blood Moon, and just my luck. Like I was like looking for bait, and Blood Moon started, and at this point, like my boyfriend had to go somewhere, so he left the world open in Terraria, and his character like somewhere in the house. And I was like fully in control of the map, like, and I had to go in this hunt alone. The thing is that we got like 2 natural occurring blood moons like back to back, and then I had to use 3 blood tears. So after 5 blood moons, almost at 4 a.m. on the final one, I got the Nautilus to spawn.
Wow.
And killed it and got the stuff on the first try because I think it was like a 50-50 chance to get it.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. So I got the achievement on Dread on me because I killed the Nautilus. I got my stuff, and now I have 5 powerful bats by me and a white tiger, and everything on site dies. So we went to the Jungle Temple after this adventure. I got the achievement Temple Rider because we entered the temple, and also it was very funny because I was like, we were like slowly making our way like through the traps because holy crap, there were a lot of traps, and we couldn't see the cables with these like was it like the Great Architect or something like that? That is like a blueprint looking thing that allows you to see traps and like cut cables and place cables and stuff like that. So we were very careful. My girlfriend died a couple of times because we got careless. And the thing is that I can stick to walls. So whenever something exploded or like there were shurikens like bouncing around or something went wrong, I just jump up, stuck to the table, stuck to the wall until everything settled down and then went down. And my boyfriend didn't have that commodity, so he died a lot because of maybe my mistakes.
Nice.
So we were like at the end of the temple. I saw like an altar looking thing, and it was like, "Hey, what is this?" And I didn't dare to touch it. And my boyfriend was like, "Hey, what is this?" He right clicked on it, and he spawned the temple boss. That was a golem.
Nice.
We killed it. We survived. And we got the achievement Lizard and Idol, and I think we unlocked even more stuff. So that was fun.
Yeah.
Kind of underwhelming too, because I thought we will die more, but we got it at our first try, which was very nice.
Always a good thing.
Always a good thing. So at the end of the day, we ended up organizing our stuff because holy crap, there was a lot of stuff on the chest. So many items. I didn't even realize there were so many items in Terraria. We also made a kitchen because my boyfriend kind of like looked things up and he discovered that food gives up very interesting and very powerful buffs. So we're gonna take advantage of that on our next adventure. And he also made a teleporter to the desert, which we have to make a little hat for it. Because how teleporters work on this game, it is very funny because it's not that the person who clicks the switch and is on the platform gets teleported to the other place. It's more or less that everything on both ends of the teleporter gets swapped around. So,
Okay.
for example, if there's a mummy in the desert that just happens to be like on top of the teleporter, that is gonna get into your house when we teleport away, and we don't want that. So we have to make a hut for that. So yeah,
Cool.
our Terraria adventure ends here for now. We're continuing next week. Please tune in for our next shenanigans. The other game that I've been playing, and I kind of had the itch to play it, was Plague Inc. Evolve. I played I think just Plague Inc. Whenever they decided to give it away for free or like have it available for free because of the pandemic.
Yeah.
And I played it back then, but I don't know, because reasons I was looking at the game right now, like recently, and realized there's so much more stuff to do. Like,
they've added loads of stuff to that game.
Back in my day, there was like just the bacteria campaign, the virus campaign, the fungi campaign, and I think at the time they were talking about adding like the zombie campaign. But now, holy crap, there are like 10 or so, or even more different like virus or like infections kind of modes.
Yep.
There's also like the zombie vampire, I think, and the
there's a parasite.
Planet of there's parasites, yeah. There's also like the not monkey, like how do you call like the big not the monkeys, like the big gorillas and chimpanzees and stuff. How do you call the family?
Like apes.
Apes, that's the one.
Yeah.
So there's also the ape virus, where apes get start going like full Planet of the Apes intelligence, and they are kind of like killing off humans. So there's a lot to do, and I kind of want to, at the very least, succeed once on each campaign, and I'll call it a day there. And right now, the first round was on bacteria. I tried to start on United States, and I think I did that by mistake. But the thing is that if you start on a like well-developed country with a lot of health stuff and measures, you're gonna have a rough start because you need to expand quickly at the start and then try to conquer everything else. But if you start out in United States, it's gruelingly slow. Like, holy crap, even getting like 3 people infected was a challenge. I eventually got the cure discovered before ending humanity, which is not ideal when you're the one trying to end humanity. The second run was on West Africa, and the infection rates were so much fucking better there. So, I eventually got achievements long shot and because of like you have like symptom combinations kind of thing. And also, I had kind of like a problem here. So this is actually like a running joke in the community, how Greenland doesn't get infected often enough and runs. So Greenland didn't get infected. Everyone else in the world died. And I lost because there was no one to infect Greenland, and Greenland pretty much closed the borders like pretty early on. So fuck you, Greenland.
I always had trouble with Iceland as well. Like any kind of small island that can close borders and stuff really quickly, they're difficult to deal with.
Yes, it is very difficult. So I had to change tactics. So this time around, I once again started on West Africa, but this time I was a silent killer. So I pretty much infected everyone in the world first, got a big enough amount of points to start pretty much getting like the total system failure symptom, and then I just evolved that trait and start adding things to make finding a cure more difficult and making the thing more lethal, and I won. So
Yep.
this time around, Greenland was not the bane of my existence.
Well, and just for anyone listening who is getting a bit confused, the whole point of the game is that you start off as a disease that you're trying to kill the entire human race with. And the game is like a map, and you kind of choose where you want to go and how your disease then evolves. And you can evolve stuff like you're resistant to cold or heat or whatever, and that kind of helps you spread and all that kind of thing. So yeah, when Paula's talking about like just infecting everyone but not killing them, like there are things you can do to kind of not be deadly but be very highly infectious.
I kind of forgot to explain the game before talking about the game. I'm sorry.
It's been around for so long. Like, it was one of the very first iPad games I ever played, because I remember a friend of mine who got an iPad when iPads were new. This was one of the first games that he downloaded and showed me, because I was like, wow, this is cool, and it works really well on a touchscreen.
Yeah.
So, you know, I've played it a lot over like 20 years or something. And so it is an old game that most people probably know about, but I just thought, just in case.
Just in case. Also, there are like 3 stats to your little infection. So you have, I guess, contagiousness, like how contagious your disease is.
Mm.
So in that case, if you have like resistance to certain things like medicine, or even like resistance to cold weather or like hot weather, that helps to spread the disease further. But also you have like other ways to spread disease, like being able to be spread out around by birds, or like being more like it's surviving better like to water and stuff like that. So whenever you have events like tsunamis or like ships being like sanitized or stuff like that, the water upgrades help you to combat that, or like even take advantage of some situations. In a similar case, there's also this severity stat. The more severe the infection is, the more eyes are in use. So you have to keep that down for a while if you don't want to get discovered and cured quickly. But there's also the mortality rate, where because your illness can be severe but not mortal, but you want it to be mortal at some point. So yeah, the more severity and the higher the mortality usually is when things start to get iffy. And and the thing is that you're in a race against the clock sometimes, because if your illness gets discovered like very early on, then and it's like severe enough for the people to start working on a cure, then you are in trouble. It also depends on which country starts working on a cure, because at some point, like West Africa was the only one working on a cure, and it advanced like so fucking slowly. And then when I infected the world, the rest of the world was like, hey, we need to work on a cure. At that point, I already developed like insomnia and stuff that would make developing a cure more difficult. Oh yeah, and that's kind of like a hidden stat, that there are things that make working on a cure more difficult. Either like having like things like DNA reshuffle and stuff like that makes analyzing the virus or fungi, whatever itself, more difficult. But also the symptoms that you develop may cause people to be less cooperative with one another. So if you develop insomnia and all the branch associated with that, people are not going to be well enough to work on the cure.
Yeah. And well, that's why I like that they've added lots of stuff like zombies and, you know, all that kind of thing. Because I think there was a point in the game's lifespan when people realized for most of the basic diseases like bacteria or virus or that kind of thing, the key to winning is basically infect everyone before you're even discovered and then go straight to killing everybody. So, because the game kind of forces you, well, it doesn't force you, but you naturally evolve symptoms of having the disease, but you can actually spend money to get rid of those evolutions, which sounds counterintuitive because it means you're not as deadly. But if you become really infectious and infect everyone in the world without ever actually showing any symptoms, then no one knows you even exist, and you don't even have to struggle to infect everybody. All you do then is evolve into this really deadly virus that everyone already has. So before they know it, everyone's dying, and then they start trying to look for a cure, but then everyone's dying, and then they all just die too quickly and nothing can happen. So, but in the other ones with zombies and stuff, you can't work it that way. So it kind of changes it up some more, which is good.
Yeah, so far I've only done bacteria and I'm trying to do virus. So the difference between bacteria and virus is that, well, bacteria is more controllable in a way. And you actually have to kind of like evolve certain traits for it to start mutate more. And also if you deactivate like a particular symptom, you get more DNA points. So in that case, you can just de-evolve anything you don't want at that point and still save up a little bit of money. The virus, on the other hand, which I tried once so far, by the way, history repeats itself. Fuck you, Redman. It's a lot more unpredictable in a way because it tends to mutate more.
Yep.
And it doesn't have the same adaptability to certain things like a virus, like the bacteria has, because you can evolve like the external shell of the bacteria even further to be able to survive to more things. But the virus, you can evolve like more unpredictability. Like there's literally like an update that lets you like mutate faster and mutate further shit. So and for the virus, you have to pay to de-evolve trait. So you have to be constantly like trying to make the virus like not so deadly, so you can infect everyone before they start dying. Because that's the other thing that almost happened to me, that people were dying faster than they were infected. So I have to develop a couple of traits.
Well, yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? Like if you're a virus that's too, or a disease of any form that's too deadly, you just kill people before you can pass on the infection, which is just as not helpful as not even killing people. So
yeah, so once again, like this was stupid because at some point I was like over 50% infectious with the virus, and I have like extra infectability in water and great survivability on chips. And somehow I didn't get to Greenland like in like 5 minutes. And then they closed the borders and I was like, well, fuck me. Fuck Greenland again. I did get the achievement brains because I discovered the Walking Dead combo. But that was about it. I stopped for now, but I want to try to win as a virus again.
It's such a good game. Like
it is a very good game. It's very fun and it's very addictive to a degree.
And talk about games that hold up as well. Like it is, I know it's a Plague Inc. Evolved is a new version, but it's you know, it originally came out in 2012. So we're talking 12 years ago, and it's still fantastic.
That is a great game. So yeah, that's all I've been playing. What have you been playing? Tell us.
Well, just a couple to quickly go through. I started a game called Virtuaverse, which is another point-and-click adventure, except this one is a kind of cyberpunk sci-fi future mystery game. I haven't obviously finished it yet, so I'm not quite sure what the big payoff is, but basically initially you start off as a guy who's a bit of a hacker and a bit of a, you know, a rebellious kind of guy who wakes up in his apartment and his girlfriend has disappeared and left a note that's very kind of ambiguous. So you go looking for your girlfriend. And as you do that, you find, you basically find out about the different hacker gangs and groups in the city, and that she's potentially hooked up with some, or involved with some troubling people and that sort of thing. The story's kind of pretty basic so far, because I've got to the point where I've found my girlfriend, but there's more to do. But to get there, you have to kind of do very usual kind of point and click stuff, like puzzles and things, where like you explore the city looking for clues and that sort of stuff. And for example, in in one part of the city, down an alleyway, you find a hobo who is just kind of on the side of the street, and he's addicted to AR cartridges because one of the things about this potential cyberpunk future is that there's a lot of augmented reality stuff. So a lot of people have an implant which has augmented reality on 24/7. So there's a lot of like advertising on the walls and stuff, which is all just like augmented reality, like you're wearing Google glasses and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But our main character doesn't have the implant, but he's got some glasses that he puts on, so you can turn them on and off essentially, and you can see the world without augmented reality or with augmented reality. And so in conjunction with all that, one of the things that people like to do is they get cartridges of essentially virtual reality experiences kind of things that they play, and it's almost like a drug because it feels so good and everything. And so one of the examples of like a puzzle, which is very typical point and click stuff, is that you find this dude who is a homeless guy who's just hooked on these cartridges, but he's also sitting next to the bin out the back of a restaurant, which you want to get into because the restaurant's throwing away like good food and stuff, and you need some food for something else to persuade another person to do something. But the homeless guy won't let you do that because it's his bin. So you've got to kind of find a smuggler to find a good cartridge to then give the homeless guy so that he gets, hooked on that, and then you can kind of raid his bin. And, it's all those sorts of like multi-step kind of logic puzzles where I want to get to X, but I need to go through A, B, C, D, E, F to get there first. And maybe when I hit E, I also need to go through L, M, N, O, P to get back to E. It's that kind of like logic structure, which is very point and click games. But the best thing about this game is the overall presentation, world building, soundtrack, everything. There's lots of dialogue, so there is a lot of reading. It's not voice acted or anything, but that's kind of okay because the soundtrack's really good. So when you're having long conversations with people, which can be quite long, like you can spend like 15, 20 minutes just talking to people and reading text and listening to the soundtrack as you do. And it's still enjoyable, which is good because the soundtrack's great. It's like this real synth wavy kind of, sci-fi kind of soundtrack. The graphics are awesome because it's all very almost generic, but in a very good way, kind of that cyberpunky kind of graphics where, there's the city is always raining and there's neon shit everywhere. All the characters are wearing like funky clothes and they've got like weird VR glasses and stuff, or AR glasses, I should say. Your character rides like a motorbike as if he's in a Kira or something. And, it's just kind of got that cool Matrix kind of augmented reality future cyberpunk thing going on, which is a lot of fun. And like I said, I'm not really far enough into the story. I think I might be about halfway, but I'm not far enough to really know what the point is yet. Like I've just been kind of doing the carrot on a stick thing, like going to the next thing and unlocking the next thing. And yeah, the whole point hasn't really landed yet. So, cool, jury's still out on that one. But the journey is a lot of fun because, the puzzles are interesting. The game looks amazing. The aesthetic and the presentation is just the biggest seller for me. And yeah, it's a lot of fun. I'm really looking forward to seeing where it goes because it's a really cool point and click. And it's much better than Lost Horizon, which I just finished. So that's a good thing. I also played a very little bit of You Don't Know Jack 2015, which everyone knows the Jackbox party games. And before that was a game called You Don't Know Jack, which was just the quiz game on its own. And they made like a whole bunch of You Don't Know Jack games like that were on CD-ROM, I want to say even as far back as like the 90s or the 2000s. And then they started doing Jackbox party packs.
Excuse me?
Yeah. Yeah, You Don't Know Jack is a quiz game that's been around for a long time. And on Steam, you can get the original ones like You Don't Know Jack 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever. There's also then You Don't Know Jack movies. There's You Don't Know Jack music. There's You Don't Know Jack sports. It was a quiz game that was basically around forever and a very good one. And in the very first Jackbox party pack.
1995.
There you go. And I played these when they were new as well back in the day. But the very first Jackbox party pack, like the number 1 pack, had a version of You Don't Know Jack, which is the quiz show game and was like the staple of the You Don't Know Jack series before they started doing the party pack stuff. And so in that is You Don't Know Jack. It's called You Don't Know Jack 2015 because it's just called You Don't Know Jack and it was released in 2015, but there's already another You Don't Know Jack from 1995 or whenever. But you can actually play through, even though it's a quiz show and everything and you're meant to be playing with other people, they actually work really well in single player because as a single player, you can kind of still do the trivia and answer the questions and all that kind of stuff. But there's a series of set episodes. So the questions are always the same. The answers are always the same, that kind of thing. But you play from one episode to the next and it kind of has almost like a story progression. Very, very light, I will say. But there's some fun stuff to do where there's each episode has like a wrong answer of the game, which will get you bigger points if you get the wrong answer, but the specific wrong answer, because each episode has a sponsor, like a fictional sponsor, and it'll be some stupid company with like a pun for a name. But one of the questions along the way in the actual episode, the answer will relate to that sponsor. And if you pick the answer that relates to the sponsor, you get the wrong answer of the game and you earn lots and lots of money. So I've kind of been playing through that quiz show version on my own just because I like quiz shows anyway. And I like You Don't Know Jack as a series. But I've been trying to get all the wrong answers of the game. And it's much more difficult than you think. But some of them are very hard to guess. But, it's fun because you get to do some trivia. And I think they're very well presented. And, they've got a sense of humor that's probably not for everyone, but kind of works more than it doesn't, I think. Because they try to be a comedy game as well. But, yeah, for anyone who perhaps, like me, doesn't know enough people regularly to play You Don't Know Jack or Jackbox Party Packs kind of games, the You Don't Know Jack series is actually pretty good because you can play them single player and still have fun on a quiz show kind of thing. So I've been playing that and it's good. But yeah, if anyone is interested and didn't know that there were other You Don't Know Jack games like Polar, they're really, really cheap because they're really, really old. Some of the references are probably very dated because obviously if it was made in 1995, it's not going to reference anything newer than that. And they are a bit old. Like they when you load them up, they run in like a 640 by 480 window kind of style. And I think most of them use DOSBox as well to get running. But yeah, good times, very good times, and highly recommend. So yeah, that's what I've been playing.
I'm still blown away by it, but because I was looking at the Wikipedia page, and also that company that makes the You Don't Know Jack series also started make the standalone games, and those are the ones that ended up in the Jackbox pack.
Yeah. Well, and especially I think it was Jackbox Movies, or not Jackbox, sorry, getting confused. You Don't Know Jack Movies, which was obviously a movie-themed quiz show. That one I played a shitload of with my family because they have it set up so that you can all kind of use the same keyboard and you just kind of buzz in with your key on the keyboard. Mm-hmm. And so you can play multiplayer, like local multiplayer on a PC, or, if you've put it onto a TV or something, you can do it if you all kind of gather around the keyboard. So yeah, it's cool. And it's before any of the Jackbox stuff where you did stuff on your mobile phone and all that kind of thing. So they're fun games. Definitely worth checking out. But nice. That's what we've been playing. That's what we've been doing. Whew, it's a fair bit of that. But let's have a chat, Paula, about How Long to Beat itself, which I'm going to reiterate has surpassed 500,000 users. My goodness, what a lot of people there are. And I think about 50 of them listen to this podcast. So
yeah, with one or two that are here.
So thank you, listeners, for listening. You're a drop in the ocean, but you're an important part of that ocean. So at least to me.
Well, a drop in the ocean is more like a glass of water over here. So that's very nice.
Excellent. So why don't you take it away, Paula? Tell us how, just in general, we'll talk about our own kind of profiles and backlogs and stuff, but just in general, the site as a whole, how did you come to How Long to Beat and how do you use it?
First of all, I think I was either looking for how long to beat a certain game, or I was trying to look for hints or tips or stuff like that on managing a video game backlog, because at the time I was just starting to I have the problem of, hey, I am not playing the games as fast as I get them anymore. Actually, I can just check when I joined How Long to Beat. Riveting commentary over here, ladies and gentlemen.
2016.
2016. So at the time, I was like already in uni, and the thing is that once I got to uni, I didn't have anyone to tell me, hey, do not waste your money on games. So what did I do? I wasted my money on games. So at that time, it was probably like my first very big Steam sale, because at the time I just got like a PC that could actually run shit, which was very welcome at the time. But also, I bought more games that I would like to admit on that Steam sale, and also I was in the hunt for every 3DS or DS and Wii U game that I haven't played at that point. So and that cut my interest. So at the point, I was jumping between stations, meeting up with people to get like DS and 3DS games like at $10 a piece. Which was quite nice, by the way. I wish those times were back, but anyway. So yeah, I had a collection of games. I didn't know how to organize them, so I look up how to organize your collection of games or something along those lines. And one of the first things that appeared was a forum on How Long to Beat. So that's how I got into the site, and I realized, hey, I can organize stuff, I can talk with people. What else do I want here? So I got to the site that way.
Nice.
But how did you manage to get into the site, Avatage?
I mean, I think like a lot of people, I just Googled how long is this game, or how long does it take to beat X game back in the 2011 or whenever it was that I ended up joining. But because I think I joined at like the end of or roughly the end of the first year of the site even existing. But it was definitely towards the end of that, I think, because I like just snuck in. I think I joined in like December 2011. And the reason I joined was after I Googled a few times and like, found obviously times that I was looking for. I thought, oh, cool. I like when there's stuff like that, I like to then contribute as well. So one of the things that I like to do with the whole How to Beat website, other than like I don't use it so much to organize my backlog and that kind of thing, which we'll get into a bit later. But I still, my primary use of the site is contributing times and then looking up times, because that's kind of where I started using it, and that's kind of how I've always been using it. And then everything else has kind of come later, like being a part of the community and then, using it for my backlog and then later collections and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I definitely found it purely by searching for, how long is this game? And then it kept popping up and I thought, well, I might as well just join the site and then I can just come straight to the site and stop Googling it, which is what I do these days as well. I just go straight to the site and put it in the site search box instead of bothering with Google. So yeah, it was literally to find out how long games are, which is probably the most generic answer, but I imagine one of the most common answers as well, kind of thing. That's in how most people get here. And
definitely.
Yeah. And it wasn't, and I've essentially used it like that for a while. Like I didn't actually delve into the forums or anything for like a good few years after joining the site. So, I kind of just kept to my own thing and added my own times and completions and then looked up other times and completions and that's about it. But yeah, one of the things I do really love about the site and always love about the site is that, we all have our own ideas on even what different completions mean. Like, what is 100% completion? Like, apparently that's up for debate. And I personally don't think it is, but that's okay because we're all different and we're all wonderful flowers in our own little garden. But the thing I love about Everdread as a creator as well is the openness for people to use the site however the hell they want and to then pull useful data from that, even though people may be using it differently. And I think having more users and now obviously surpassing 500,000 and stuff, it makes it easier to kind of aggregate those numbers perhaps, because even if people do use it slightly differently, on the whole, I imagine the vast majority of people use it very similarly, or those sorts of median times and everything kind of do average out very solidly for most games and all that kind of stuff. And it is interesting though, because there are always times that you look up and you go, man, that seems way too quick, or that seems way too long. And what I've learned over the years is there are certain games and certain genres which I tend to finish very quickly compared to other people. Like point and clicks is a good one. I usually tend to be under the average for point and click games. Whereas other games, like I guess more RPG type games, I tend to be way over the average. So, or open world games, I tend to be way over the average. Like I don't play them very quickly at all. And that's fine. It doesn't mean it's wrong, but I think like anything, knowing those sorts of things about your own capabilities kind of helps you use the site a lot better as well, because it's like reading reviews for games and that kind of thing. If you get to know the reviewer and if you know that you either agree or disagree with them, then their reviews become more useful to you because you know where you stand generally. Like there are some reviewers who I know I disagree with all the time. So if they say something's bad, I'm like, I might like that. Or if they say something's really good, I'm like, I probably won't like that. And it's the same with HLTB. Like if I look at a point and click time and it's like 5 hours, I often think, okay, it might be more like 4 for me because I'm usually a little bit quicker. Or if I look at a open world game, like, I don't know, like a Grand Theft Auto or something, and it says 30 hours, I think, okay, maybe I'm probably closer to 40 or 50 hours, you know. Like, it's a great reference point for just what to expect. And I think as we all get older and our time becomes more precious, I've noticed from talking to people in the community as well, it's nice to know how much time you've got ahead of you in a game and how much investment you need to make, because sometimes you only want a couple of hours. And it's good to know ahead of time that it's only going to take you a couple of hours to finish something. So, yeah, knowing that kind of data actually becomes really important, I think, when, well, for anyone, it doesn't have to do with age, but for anyone who's time poor and has other commitments and all that kind of stuff, it's being able to know what you're in for is actually really useful. So,
Definitely, especially like, for example, I'm studying and sometimes I have like a weekend job or something like that. So sometimes I have like lots of time because the semester is just starting. There's not a lot of stuff to study. So I can make like a commitment for, I don't know, a 10-hour game if I want to complete something for the podcast. But sometimes it's like, well, I haven't completed something like in 4 weeks. Maybe I should finish like a 2-hour game or something. And for that purpose, like the site has been like a godsend to me. Because sometimes I don't have like the energy to commit to more than half an hour a day. Or sometimes I just want to play like half the day at my own risk.
or really,
So yeah.
sometimes I want to dive into something that's going to take forever and just kind of start playing and know that, okay, this is going to take months to finish.
Yeah.
But yeah, at the same time, I often have like 1 or 2 of those sorts of size games on the go at any given time. I don't want more than that though. So that's where there are other games which I think, oh, I'll play that now. But then I think, oh no, actually, let's wait on that one because I don't need another, 60-hour plus epic kind of thing to play in amongst the other ones I'm already playing.
I wish I had your level of restraint because more on that later. But the amount of games that I've started and I haven't finished by intent to finish is way too high. Because I try to have a method to my madness, but I am not especially good at keeping up my structure here.
Well, interestingly enough, I've had discussions with other people in the community where my method can be considered a bit of madness because I do just kind of start things and then stop playing them and then keep playing them later, and I don't really think about it that much. Whereas I know there are members in the community who, like, on top of HLTB, they have like full spreadsheets and they plan out their entire year of gaming in advance and all that kind of thing. And that's cool. It's not something I would do, but that's like a level of commitment I'm not ready for. But yeah, sometimes people plan out like a whole year of what they're going to play ahead of time because perhaps they need to do that because of, to make things work and to actually get through things. And, that's where the site can be really helpful with that because you know how long things are probably going to take and how people have rated stuff as well. Like, I really like the stats, like retirement stats and that kind of stuff as well, because even if something's really good, it can perhaps be high retirement because some random reason, like maybe it's just quite a difficult game, or maybe it's it's really good, but no one's actually that invested to keep playing it, which kind of says something. And those two things can kind of exist at the same time. And yeah, that's why I like those sorts of stats as well, where it's not just about the time, but it's the rating, it's the retirement level. It's, you know, even seeing how many people have played a game, like Paula, we were discussing earlier, trying to pick games for our guessing game and going through our completions. And we both have played a bunch of weird stuff which no one else has played. So it's kind of hard sometimes finding a game for our guessing game because we'll find lots of games that are potentials, but no one else has played it. So there's no comments or anything to kind of, you know, go off for our guessing game. But that's kind of fun too, because when I love when I go to enter a game into as a completion, and you know, it's fun when it's a really popular game and you can kind of go, oh wow, I was way off the average, or I was like bang on or whatever, and 30,000 other people have played this game. But then it's also fun to go, oh, only one other person has played this, so cool, I'm the second or whatever.
Yeah, at some point on the side, like, okay, the percentages have shifted in the recent years. So now for every 12 men, there's a woman on the forum. But at some point, it was like a 14-1, and it was stupid. To the point that at some point, I was the only person, or like the first person logging in completions for Otome games.
Yep. That makes sense.
And then when I started seeing like other people logging their Otome games before me, it was like, holy crap, I have companions here. Where are my compatriots? I don't know.
But that is great because, like, especially those weird games, they're the ones that I want to look up the time for probably more than other games. Like, I find myself often looking up game times for games that I don't know much about more than games I know a lot about. You know, like if there's a new Call of Duty campaign, yeah, I know it's probably going to take about 4 or 5 hours on average because that's how long those games take. And I've played many of them before, and who cares kind of thing. But if there's some weird indie kind of visual novel crossover thing that no one's ever played before, I kind of want those times, even though they're not there. So, but then it feels good because I like contributing to the site. So it feels good logging a completion and putting in a time and going, hey, anyone else who's interested in this, at least I've played it and I can tell you it's, you know, a couple of hours or something. Like, that's where I really like that's my attitude to like logging completions and things. It's funny because I know a lot of people like to whatever log things for different reasons and all that kind of stuff, but I've always found it interesting because my main motivation is just I like adding to the data set kind of thing and helping make it more accurate and useful, especially with those smaller games.
In that regard, like, I'm kind of like a maniac because I know that the Steam clock is kind of like very accurate, but I do my best to never leave the game on idle.
Yeah.
As in, so the times are as accurate as possible. And I discovered recently that the average, like the times the Nintendo Switch gives to you, first of all, you have to have been playing the game for a couple of weeks for it to start showing like the total time that you've been playing. But even then, those times are off. So I started using the parental control app because that will give you like the daily amount of minutes that you've been playing that Nintendo Switch game. But then I realized those weren't accurate at all. To the point that I compared like times gotten like with my stopwatch on my cell phone, and the times that I got from the app, and when adding them up, I got like upwards up to 5 to 10 hours of difference in like, I don't know, a 40-hour game, which is quite a lot still. So now I only use my stopwatch for Nintendo Switch games because I'm a maniac.
Well, no, I agree. I think that's something that's interesting as well. Like, how do you get your times? Because I know from Steam, like I trust my Steam times because I don't leave things idle for long periods of time. The most I'll leave something running and not be playing is like 2 seconds as I go fill up my glass with some water or something and come back. Like, it's not enough to be, damaging or significant. But yeah, if I'm not playing it, it's not open. So my Steam times are actually very accurate for how much time I spent in the game. So I trust those, and I always just automatically import those through the site as you do. But pretty much everything else, I use a timekeeping app to like a manual one that, you know, and then I manually enter the times and all that kind of thing. And I don't trust the automatic timekeeping or anything, because like even like PlayStation these days has started giving you times for games, but it's rounded to the nearest hour, and it's whenever the game is running. And because they have this whole feature where you can suspend a game so that it basically like puts it into the background, but it keeps it running so that it'll load quickly next time, that whole time will count as time that you've been in the game, even if you're not. So so yeah, I don't trust those timers or anything.
Yeah. The only other like accurate timekeeping thing that I've used is either like some of like the in-game timers, but if it's like something like an RPG or something, if you die, those precious minutes aren't being kept into your account. But the other one that I really use is the 3DS one, because that one is not only like perfectly calculated, like perfectly, like each game has like its own little page on how long have you been playing it, but also it has like you can see like the calendar, and even like you can see like how much have you been playing every specific hour of the day that game.
Oh, cool.
And so that's the only other thing that I trust. But since it keeps the time like on the console and not like on the game or cartridge or something like that, if you're gonna replay that game, then you have to remember when the time, like what the time was before you started your replay, because otherwise you're gonna get confused. But it's
Yeah.
like such a minor thing that I don't care. Like I'll do that job. Like it just gives me like that freedom of I don't have to start the stopwatch on the go.
Yeah. Well, and conversely to that, like I've gotten so used to like starting my, like I've got an app called Toggle, which I used to use for work all the time when I ran my own business, and because then I could time how many hours I've spent on a project, because and that's what it's for. That's what the app is meant for. And you basically you can enter what you're working on, and you can even assign it a project and that kind of thing. So if I'm working on something, I might put the job that I'm working on and then tell it what project I'm working on. And then at the end of the month, when I'd bill my clients, I'd basically go in and say, okay, look, I've worked 20 hours on this project, so I'm going to bill you 20 hours or whatever. And that's kind of what the app is for. But I got into the habit while I was doing that as well, while I was running my own business, of timing my games as well. Like I just had a project in there which is called like Game Timer. And because once you've entered it in once, you can just select an old entry to start another timer for that same thing. So it's very easy to just kind of one click start the timer again every time you play a game, and stop it manually and all that kind of thing. And then, yes, you've got to enter them manually into the HLTB website. But that's, you know, I just do that every now and then when usually by the time I finished a game, I'll enter in all my times. But, or you can look at Toggle also will, if you've, let's say I've been playing Red Dead Redemption. So let's say I've put in a whole lot of entries for Red Dead Redemption. I can go onto my account on the site and it'll give me a total for all those entries. So when I finish Red Dead Redemption, I can see what my total time is and just pop that onto the website, onto HLTB. So nowadays, because I'm used to using that and I'm used to using it for work as well, like I've already got it in my head to time things that I'm doing on my computer. So I use that all the time anyway, still for timing games. Or there's another app called Manic Time, which I know other people use as well, which is an app that kind of just sits in the background on your PC and records everything that you do. And basically whatever is your focus at the time, it'll record that that's what you're doing at that time. So whatever window you're looking at, it'll say, okay, you started looking at it at this time and you stopped looking at it at this time. So if you're doing something for a long amount of time, like play games and stuff, it'll record how much time you spent in that game. And if you tab out or something, it won't record that time. So that's also a very good app to use if you're into that kind of thing. But just the last thought on especially on PC. I know consoles are very hard sometimes, but if you're using a program like Playknight or something, which is the kind of aggregate library manager and it plugs into Origin and Steam and GOG and everything else and Epic, and it'll even pull times from like your Game Pass library and all that kind of stuff. It actually reveals times that aren't revealed elsewhere. So Game Pass is actually very good at, it tracks your times very accurately, but it just doesn't show you anywhere, at least not accurately. Like it'll give you like a rounded kind of, you spent 60 hours in this game. But if you then look at it through something like Playknight, which then pulls the data from the API, you'll see that it's actually 59 hours and 32 minutes and 7 seconds or something. Like it'll give you the actual accurate number. So I find that kind of useful as well for some platforms. It doesn't work for everything, but after you've used it a bit, you kind of get the idea of how it works and what platforms it kind of pulls that data from. And even like stuff like I was saying with the PlayStation and things, it'll give you, apps like that will give you better accurate kind of time data because it's pulling it from the actual server and it's not trying to round it up or anything and present it in a nice way. It just gives you the actual data. So so those sorts of things are useful. But yeah, I don't trust most automatic timers other than Steam though, if I'm honest. Just because I know how I use Steam and I know how Steam works. So yeah, anything else is kind of like meh.
Yeah, definitely.
But let's talk about how you use your tabs, unless you have anything else to say.
Oh, I don't have anything else. So let's jump to the tabs.
Yeah. So I know you use more tabs than I do because I don't use any custom tabs. So take us through your setup there, Paula.
Okay, so first of all, my backlog is for things I haven't played and I actually want to play, and that includes replays. So it's like, hey, I kind of like want to replay, I don't know, Ghost Trick at some point. So that jumps back into the backlog, so I remember to eventually play it. But yeah, like anything that I get like from Humble Bundle, for example, that I don't intend to play doesn't go into the backlog. Just the things that I want to play at some point. I have my playing tab that is the things that I've started and are like in the current rotation. So things that I've been actively playing more or less, or that I intend to actively play in the near future. Which, by the way, I had to sort out like my playing tab like just before recording because I realized that I have like 15 games on it, and I've only been playing like 3 plus 2 that I want to go back into. So right now I have like
15 games.
Yeah, but right now I have like 5 games I'm playing. The games I'm completed are things that I've finished, either like main story, main plus, 100%. Everything goes to completed. Retired is the infinishable stuff I got in my fair share of, or things you couldn't force me to touch with a 10-foot pole. That's how I put it in the notes. So whenever I get tired of a game, I really don't want to see its face or whatever, it goes to retired. I probably won't like unretire it anytime soon. And if I manage to say, hey, I kind of like want to play that game again, maybe my perspective has changed or anything like that, I just log in a new a new entry, like, because I start from the beginning. Like that retired playthrough is retired forever.
Well, just to interrupt, that's one thing that I think is interesting as well. Like, I know some people think about entries in their lists as one entry per game kind of thing, whereas it sounds like you're similar to me, where I think about it as an entry per playthrough.
Yeah.
So I might have the same game listed like even 3, 4, 5 times because I might have replayed it a couple of times. I might have tried it somewhere and then retired it and then started it again later. And yeah, it's an interesting difference, I think.
Yeah, like especially like with the Otome games, like when I do my full playthrough, which I usually just do the 100%, but I still on the same playthrough I put my times like for the main route like first route only, that is the main kind of like just to the credits kind of thing. and up until either before I start ending hunting or just before the final route and stuff, or the secret route or something like that for the main plus. But that counts as one playthrough because that's my first playthrough through the entire game. But when I do replays and I just want to play the one route again, I just log that as a different completion. Or if I want to replay the whole thing again, that is a different completion. Because the way my brain works is that I'll complete a game to different levels of completion each time I complete it. So each experience is different. Like the same thing with Breath of the Wild. I have like 3 playthroughs completed of that game, and there are like 3 separate entries because there's 3 separate experiences. So yeah,
and I think that's where the notes field always comes in handy, which I'm a big fan of. Like putting in notes that specify what you, especially with games where it can vary a lot, but you can specify what you did for that time, kind of thing.
Yeah, notes are godsend in that regard because it's like, hey, I'm this Jamaican, I only play this character. And sometimes like there's like the completionist for each category, but there's also like a general notes thing. So I put the time for each separate route, for example. So yeah, I also have like the started, and that is one of my custom tabs. I use the 3 custom tabs. So for example, I started like I know Rick and Alex used to do like the retire as I've started this game a long time. Alex used to do that. I started this game a long time ago. I haven't touched it in a while, so it's going to retire, and then he brings it back when he wants to continue playing it. That for me is my started list. So those are the games that I started and I intend to finish, but I haven't touched in a while. But that while hasn't been enough for me to consider restarting the game because I don't remember jack shit. So, for example, Fire Emblem Engage right now it is in my started list, but it's not in my playing list. Things that like N or 9 are in both lists, the started and playing list. So whenever I haven't played it in a while, I just press the toggle button and just put it in the started list alone. By the way, I should probably like start finishing some of the stuff I have on my starter list.
Yeah, there's some good games on there.
There's some very good stuff on there, but also there's the grand total of 55 unique games over there. It seems there's like an extra playthrough or something. I don't know where, but anyway. It says that I have a DLC or expansion. I don't know. Anyway, how long to beat sometimes stuff like that. But anyway, so yeah, I should probably like start finishing some games before starting some. I say this every time, every year, but I never do so. Of course, I have a section of just Otome games, the Otome games that are in the backlog. That doesn't count the Otome games that I've completed and don't intend to replay in the near future.
Nice.
And then this is the one that caught Josh's eye before recording, is SciAt, which is short for Science Adventure Series because that didn't fit the top. And this was needed
I don't know
because
what that means. So.
The games don't have similar enough titles for them to be close together in the backlog. So, what's on the Science Adventure series? So, you might have heard me talk about either Chaos Head Stains the Robotic Notes. Also, Cultec 9, but I haven't bought that yet, so it's not in the It's not in the backlog. As you see, Chaos, Robotic, and Stains are start with 3 different letters, so they're like super far apart on my backlog. So for me to make it like easier to see like how far in the actual series I am, I just have them all in a single list. Which, by the way, I was intending to play through like last year, like for the last couple of years, but I haven't because I'm. Leave me alone. I have ADHD. I tend to not finish what I start. But anyway.
Because you're a gamer.
Yes. So yeah, right now there's Chaos Head, Chaos Child, Robotic Notes Dash, Stains Gate 0, Stains Gate Elite, Stains Gate Linear Bonded Phenogram, and Stains Gate My Darling's Embrace. As you see, only the Stains Gate games are kind of like consistent, but like the only consistency between the titles of the game is that I don't know, like semicolon colon thingy in the title. But that's the only thing keeping them together. Also, Occultic Night, it should be in this list anytime soon. But also, O is a different letter from the other 3 letters. So it is whatever. Like when on the backlog. Also, since I also keep my backlog written neatly on my little journal thingy over here, which Josh has the pleasure or displeasure to see over here.
Looks like a handwritten backlog.
Yeah, so I each time I restart, kind of like every 6 months to a year, depending on how I'm feeling. I have to rewrite my entire backlog as shown in the How Long to Beat side. And also I have color coding for this. So for example, at the start of this year, Otome games were highlighted in pink. Side Adventures was highlighted in a reddish orange. Rusty Lake was gray. Zelda is on a very light green. Fire Emblem has a very nice blue to it. And everything else, just whatever color I'm feeling like. And that's my quick way to finding the games that I'm looking for in the grading backlog. And also I have the journey here. So each time you hear me say, hey, I think I have that written down, is because I have it physically written down on the journal. And I also have like my Rusty Lake notes over here too, which are only understandable by me. And again, everything is color coded depending on the color I give into that game.
Yeah, lots of highlighting going on there.
Yeah. And also I paste, like, there's this little tab thingies that I paste for each completion, so I know that this is the amount of games I've completed since I've rewritten everything on my little journal. But also I have this journal that I have a different journal that I have like in the last couple of years. So you can I won't trigger the thing, but you see these triggers, you can like open the spine.
Yeah.
So you can just take off the pages. And what I did to, of course I don't have that on hand because it is in the other house, but I kind of like sewn together the pages of the I made like a little booklet. And then I don't have to like buy another new thing for like another new journal for the thing, because okay, so I'm very picky about the paper that I use, and I finally found like a good paper for it. So prior to this, I had a handmade, like not a handmade journal that I custom ordered with some cafe enchanté things on it. And since then, I haven't found like another paper that was good enough for this, so it didn't bleed and it felt nice to write on. And so I jumped around like a couple of different papers, and I finally found the paper that I want, and it's interchangeable. It has interchangeable pages, so I don't have to suffer through any more of this. And there's another thing that I used to do, like up until like a couple of years ago. I think that got me the tag of champion on the How Long to Beat side, went the extra mile. So I still have it like over here, but I'm not looking for it because where the hell is it? But I had an Excel or like spreadsheets kind of thing where I would at the end of the day, after I finished like playing, I would go to the How Long to Beat to my total time left in the backlog, and I would log it like in each individual cell for the day. So I would see like visually Oh, and I have like a code on it. So whenever the number was positive, it was highlighted a certain color. And whenever the number was negative, it was highlighted another certain color. And the more, and the higher or lower number, the more intense the color was.
Yep.
So I have like a visual representation of day by day if my backlog was shrinking or growing. And I have tables by month to see the total progress of that specific month, what games I finished, and all that jazz. I also have like an extra cell by each day that told me, hey, I played this, this, and this. Of course, after using that system for maybe a year or two, I stopped doing it because I didn't have like the one particular day I wasn't able to do it, and then I forgot to do it ever again.
Yep.
And when I remember, it was like, I'm so lazy, I don't want to do this again. I'm just gonna stick to the journal. And I've been happier ever since.
Yeah,
and
wow,
you'd think that having that immediate feedback like on a spreadsheet would make me like buy less games. It didn't work. My backlog grew. It always does. So yeah, enough of this mad woman's ramblings about the backlog. How do you organize your stuff about it?
Well, that is interesting to me because it's very different to how I use it, because I use it very basically, but I think very not saying you don't, but I use it very purposefully for what I want. So it's not like I guess my point is I'm not just being flippant with my how I use the site and all that kind of thing, but I use it very specifically, but very simply, I think, as well, by comparison, because I don't use any custom tabs. I tried them for a while with other stuff, but I just ended up not using them and not remembering to use them. And I find that just having playing backlog completed and retired kind of meets my tab needs. Because, well, to start off with, my backlog that I have on the site is basically my Steam backlog, because it can be automatically imported and all that kind of stuff. That's the only one that is perhaps accurately recorded on the website. Like, I'm not too bothered with having my backlog on the website, because I basically will just play something, and then when I play it, I'll go and add it, and it'll be like, oh, I've already got it on my backlog. I can just edit that entry, or I don't have it on anything. I can just create a new one. I don't really care. But so I don't really use it for backlog management in that sense. I tend to use stuff like Play Night, which is its own app and everything, because I can include everything really easily without having to manually enter it. So that's the only thing that I think holds How Long to Beat back, which is very understandable because it's a difficult thing to, hook in APIs with every single platform you can think of.
Yeah.
But even like GOG Galaxy is trying to do it and failing, which is why I don't use GOG Galaxy, but I use Play Night instead because it kind of succeeds mostly. And so, I've got thousands of games on Steam. I've got thousands of games on itch. I've got hundreds of games on Epic and everything else. And, too many to be bothered putting them in manually onto my backlog. Whereas I can import them all on Play Night and like sort by tag and stuff if I want to surface something that I wouldn't necessarily find. And that, I think, is the usefulness of that. Whereas I use How Long to Beat more for just recording my gameplay and things I've played and completed and all that kind of stuff. And tracking times mostly. So my backlog tab is there is other stuff on there, but it's mostly just imported from Steam. So, and even then I don't think it's up to date. Like every few months I kind of remember and go, oh, I should update my backlog on How Long to Beat and import those new games that I bought and whatever else I've had since last time I updated. So it's nice to see, because sometimes I will then use my backlog tab and I'll go to it and I'll sort by like time to beat if I'm looking for something really quick, or if I'm looking for something that doesn't have a time. Sometimes I'll be like, oh, that game obviously isn't very popular. Like I'm just looking at it now and I can see straight away that there's a whole bunch of games that don't even have an average time to beat that are in my backlog. And they're not necessarily small games or anything, but they're just probably not very popular. So I might think, oh, I'll give that a go and try it out. So, I kind of do use it in that sense to guide things or to find things that I might want to play that otherwise I wouldn't recognize. But I don't use it as like an accurate record of my library kind of thing. Because, there's way too many games in my library as in available for me to play. There's way more than I can ever bother putting onto my How Long to Beat backlog. So that's cool. So then I use my playing tab is basically things I've started and haven't finished and haven't decided not to finish. So
Yeah.
much like your other tabs that you've had, which are like started or whatever.
Yeah.
My playing tab is basically all encompassing. Yeah. So I've got like 73 games on my playing tab. And
wow.
The oldest one I haven't played since 2021, but I still do plan to finish. And that's Volume for anyone who's interested. The Mike Bithell game. But I also primarily don't put Steam games on my playing tab unless it's a very long game, because a lot of Steam games, because I trust the timer, I don't update my game time as I'm playing it. I just kind of wait till I'm finished, import the time, went onto the completion page, and then submit the completion kind of thing. Whereas I do have some of them on there because I just like to see. So like I've got Baldur's Gate 3 on my playing tab because it's a long game and I'll be playing it for a while, and I like seeing kind of how far I progress each time we play. So basically after I play with my mates, we usually play for a few hours at a time. When next time I'm on HLTB, I'll probably click on that entry and just re-import the time from Steam just to update it, just to then see that, oh, I played 3 hours this week of that or whatever. But most of the games on my backlog, even if they're still PC games, are usually from platforms other than Steam, because I've manually tracked the time. And when I manually track the time, I manually enter the time as I go so that I don't forget. So yeah, a lot of the stuff that's on here is more non-Steam games that I'm currently playing.
Uh-huh.
And sometimes I will I'll look at my playing to see what I've started, and I might look at a game and go, and it might be years later, and I think, yeah, I'm not going to finish that, so I'll move it to retired. Or maybe I'll think, I really need to restart that if I'm going to play it, so I'll move that playthrough to retired and start it again. But most of the stuff that's on my quote-unquote playing list is stuff that I do plan to continue playing at some point or another. But I don't mind so much it being a while since I've played it, or I don't mind having heaps of stuff on my playing tab because I jump around a lot anyway. Like, I tend to just play whatever the hell I'm in the mood for, and that can change hourly, if not daily. So I don't really care. Like, that's what I mean. I don't plan what I play very much. Like, there's not a lot of forethought going into it beyond, oh, that game looks interesting, I want to play that one day. That's about as, planning as I get. So yeah, going on from that, my retired tab I use for obviously games that I've started but haven't finished for one reason or another. I love using my notes field on my retired tab because often it's not because it's a bad game that I retire it, but it might be something else. Like, my last retirement was Street Fighter V on PlayStation 5, but the reason I retired it was because I got a copy on PC and I'm going to play it on there instead. So that's what
that one.
Yeah, that's what my retirement notes say, is I'm going to continue playing on PC instead. So I've retired this playthrough. So that's not a bad thing against the game. If anything, it's good because I want to play it on PC, which would be just, I prefer to play it on PC. And I plan to continue playing it, but I'm not going to keep playing it on PlayStation 5. So, that's that. Whereas a game like Hatred, which I retired in January, my comment was, checked it out to see what the fuss was about. Sadly, it's just a boring game. So obviously I didn't like that one and I didn't keep playing it. But other than that, my completed tab is that, yeah, I do the same thing as you, where a playthrough may have multiple completion times depending on the categories. Like, especially like an open world game where I might play it through to hit credits, but then afterwards I might go back to 100% complete it. But because it's the same playthrough, I'll record both times in the same entry. Because I think those times are useful for people, is the reason why I do it. And same with, like, I play a lot of episodic games, like a lot of narrative games are quite episodic, like a lot of Telltale games are episodic, that sort of thing. So I like to record times for each episode as well as the overall game. So something like Life is Strange, which I played recently, Beyond the Storm, I recorded a time for the entire game and then a time for each of the 3 episodes, purely because I like to contribute to the database, and I like seeing both those times in the database. Like when I was playing Life is Strange Before the Storm, I like knowing that the whole game is going to take me however long, but then each episode is probably about a couple of hours each. So yeah, I know what I'm in for, kind of thing. And yeah, beyond that, I don't really use the tabs for much else. To me, the most important tabs are the playing tab and the completion tab, because I like to record my completions and seeing what I have played and when. And I like the stats as well that you get from that. So the stats tab, which tells you, what platforms you've played on, and you can sort by year and see how many games you finished per month and all this kind of stuff. I always like looking at those stats. They're a lot of fun.
I love that tab.
Yeah, and especially like the platforms, because for me, I'm primarily PC because 78% of my completions are on PC. But then below that is more interesting because I've got a real mix of consoles where I've got 8% are on PS4, 5% PS3, 3% Xbox One, 2% PS5, 2% Super Nintendo, and so on and so forth. And yeah, that kind of stuff I always find interesting because I like stats like that. It's just fun to, look at those sorts of aggregates.
It's fun. It's kind of fun to see like how the stats page tends to change during the year for me. Because when I'm at home or I have like vacations or something like that, the most I play are PC games or like PS4 games once in a blue moon. But whenever I do have the time I don't have the time to sit down and play, and I'm just dragging around like a handheld, then those stats start to show up and skyrocketing.
Yeah. And yeah, you can see if I'm just looking through my stats month by month, and like, yeah, I can see, okay, end of last year I played a lot of games, but beginning of last year I didn't play very many at all. And I know why, because I was studying full time beginning of last year, whereas end of last year I wasn't doing much at all, so I played way more games. And you can kind of see those sorts of trends over time.
Yeah,
and,
definitely.
Yeah, that's always interesting. But as far as other things that you can get from How Long to Beat's site, obviously the stats are cool. I like the overall stats as well, like the site-wide stats, which is in the very top of the page next to the forum links. And those stats are cool where you can see like, the overall stuff and how popular things are. Like at the moment, the top playing game on the site is Baldur's Gate 3, and then Cyberpunk 2077, and then Persona 3 Reload, which is pretty good because that's quite new. And yeah, I love seeing those sorts of things. But the other thing that I don't use much of, but I've kind of been using more of lately, is collections. And I was thinking when you were talking about your science adventures series kind of thing, how you've got it in a list. For me, I'd probably put that in a collection these days. Like, I might not use the list feature. I'd probably use a collection for that kind of thing, as opposed to, bothering with custom lists and stuff, because the collections I've made are ones that I wanted to see. So, I made one when they were first out. I made one with all the Game of the Month games. I've made one with all the Fantasy Critic winning roster games. And the only other one I've made is my own top 10, which was, I think, essentially for this podcast, because Paul asked me what my top 10 was to put in the graphic for the podcast. So I just put it into a collection and said, there you go.
Anyway, we should be thinking about changing the background soon because we're in a new year and we are almost like 2 months into the new year, almost 3.
Yeah, we'll get there. But and then I have another one which is a private one, like not a public one, which is I don't even have it anymore. Okay, I must have deleted it. I did use the collection I went through my backlog and kind of highlighted ones that I want to play next kind of thing. I was trying to be a bit organized or plan ahead a little, but I never actually referred to it. I never used it, so I ended up deleting it. But yeah. Do you use collections much, Paula?
I was actually making a look at the Sotoma game list, but I forgot after logging the 3rd or 4th game, because the way you have to make the you cannot go, to my knowledge, you cannot add from the collection itself. You have to go through the game page and then add to the collection. So after the 3rd or 4th game, I got distracted and never added more to it ever again. But I do want to make that list.
Yeah, well, and there's heaps of cool lists that people have made, and I do find myself referring to other people's lists as well sometimes, especially with stuff like you say, if there's a series or something where it's a big series and I'm not really sure what all the games are, chances are someone by now has made a collection of that series, unless it's kind of obscure.
Definitely.
So, that's always good. But yeah.
So, yeah.
Anything else to add?
To oh. Ta-da! We're turning a brain cell. Lovely.
Yeah.
You go first.
I think, just as a final thought, I think again, I just want to reiterate how much I like that you can kind of use the site however you want and in different ways, and you can kind of use it to plan things or not, or just kind of track things one way or another. Like, yeah, I do think it's really versatile. I don't even like, I don't use them, but I like how you can, there's the whole blog thing in the forum now and everything that wasn't, you know, that's fit relatively recent in my eyes. I know it's been around for a few years, but it's, yeah, it hasn't been around forever. But I don't use it, but I think it's a good thing to have.
Yeah, I do upload a new entry every once in a blue moon, but lately I've been just writing things to myself rather than updating it like on the blog. I do like to write an entry or two from time to time when I remember that exists.
Yeah.
Well, and I don't get distracted midway through.
And to be perfectly honest, the only reason I don't use the HLTB forum for a blog is because I have my own blog elsewhere. So it's just a convenience thing, really. but yeah, I think congratulations, Everdread, if you're listening, on 500,000 users. That's fucking awesome. And I hope it continues
Game Pass integration to Xbox integration, which is very nice.
Yeah, there's been all the partnerships and everything that's been happening lately, lately, I say that as the last few years, I guess, with like IGN and Xbox and GOG and yeah, all these different things I think are awesome. And it's a lot of fun watching everything grow and get better and bigger and everything. And, you know, hopefully it'll continue to succeed in the same sort of way.
Oh, yeah. I guess that's it for the other things. Like, thank you, Everdread, for creating these styles so I can nerd out about games with people. And kind of like the purpose of the podcast. So it's kind of like important to us. Like we would have never met if not for the HLTB site.
Well, and I think big shout out to the community in general, because I think everyone has at least one point said that, yeah, this is actually a really nice community. And, you know, we've got a whole bunch of different types of people, sure, with different views and different things going on. But by and large, we all kind of get along and have fun and talk about games and, you know, enjoy ourselves. And I think it's a really cool space. Yep.
And that cannot be said about every other community, because holy crap, I've seen some toxic shit in the internet. So the HLTB community is very wholesome.
Well, yeah, the fact that I like taking part in this community at all kind of says a lot for me, because pretty much every other community I've been a part of in the past, I've left not in a happy way. And so therefore I don't take part in things very often. Whereas, you know, I've made plenty of friends in this community as well who I play games with and do stuff with outside of HLTB. So, you know, that's heaps good. So yeah.
Before we get too tissy, let's jump to the last section of the podcast.
Yeah. Quiz me. Make my brain hurt.
Okay, let me see that I didn't close it up. Okay, I didn't close it up. That's a good thing. So for this game, let me open a second tab so I don't have to jump back and forth too much. Okay, so this game has a main story of 14 hours and a half.
Mm-hmm.
And okay, let me actually look for this thing, because the comment that I had highlighted, I kind of lost it.
14 and a half.
No, that's not it. Oh my god. I know we're not using that one, but I will give it a call like later. Oh my god, I love how it says time not exact, because the console didn't track playtime. Okay, I'll give you the hint. Used all fast travel when available. And this person took 12 hours and 15 minutes to finish the main story.
That's it? That's the clue?
That's the clue. It's a very big clue, in my opinion.
But so many games have fast travel.
True, but how many games last like 14 hours that has fast travel?
I guess. Is it Spider-Man?
No, it's not.
Is it... I mean... See, if it's got fast travel, that makes me think it's an open worldy kind of game. Or something similar. But as you say, yeah, 12, 14 hours is not a lot of time for an open worldy game. Is it like a Saints Row?
Does it the mic register? No.
Because I know some of them could be quite short.
I can accidentally give you a second clue that it is on console with the other comments.
Okay. Oh, of course, yeah. Is it exclusively on console?
Well, the 5th. Actually, I don't think so. No, it's not. It's not exclusively on console.
Fast travel, right? Fast travel's the key. I'm thinking. I don't want to just start listing open world games, so because it could be an Assassin's Creed game. There's some short ones of that. Paul's making faces at me.
I mean,
is it an Assassin's Creed game?
It is.
Okay, so is it Liberation?
No.
Is it shit? What's the? Is it Brotherhood?
No.
Is it Revelations?
No.
Is it Freedom Cry?
No.
Oh man, these are all the short ones as well. I mean, some of their campaigns could be quite short. So is it Syndicate?
No.
Let's say, AC1, like Assassin's Creed.
Yep, it is.
Okay. I'm like, because there's quite a few we could start going through. Nice.
I forgot that we're like so many fucking Assassin's Creed games.
I guess if you do fast travel all the time, it will cut down a lot of time. Because I tend to play those games without fast traveling.
There are people that even took even less.
Yeah, I can believe it. I think, because I've played that game a number of times, I feel like I'm interested to see what my times are. If I go alphabetical.
Okay, so there was actually like a couple of fan comments that, like the one saying like the Xbox didn't have like the accurate times for it, so they didn't look in a game. But okay, let me see if I can find this, because it was like, why would you do that to yourself? Okay. So this person took 11 hours and 21 minutes, and it is actually a replay.
Yeah.
Now, yeah, it is a replay because it has like the little replay symbol. It says a few random extras, but rushed through it because I hated it. Why would you replay a game you hate?
Yeah, that's a good point. I could understand playing it for the first time because it's, the first game. But yeah. Well, I was just looking. I've got 2 replays because I didn't actually record the first time that I played this because it was a long time ago. But I've got 2 replays, and they're 16 hours and 17 hours, and they're listed as main extras, but they're pretty. From memory, I think they're closer to 100% than not. And I don't fast travel, so it shows how much difference you can get. Like 5 or 6 more hours if you don't fast travel. So yeah, man, there's a lot of Assassin's Creed games. Well, yeah, Assassin's Creed it is. That takes me to 8 points to your 10. So I'm nipping at the heels. Thank you.
Yeah, so I have to step up my game.
That was a good, yeah. I in hindsight, I like the clue that you gave for an Assassin's Creed game because it was obscure enough, but the game is common enough that anyway, it's a good balance. But that'll do us, I think. So thanks everyone once again for listening. We'll see you next time, and by all means drop comments, whatever you want, feedback, etc. Tell us how you use HLTB in a different way that we didn't mention. But
well, you're right. Why don't you leave a you already said leave a comment, but why don't you press the like button or subscribe to our channel so you know when our next episode is gonna come out? Well, it's every Sunday, but whatever. Just do it just in case.
Tell your friends. I think we average about 50 listeners, I think, a week. So
yeah, maybe 60, like when you add up like both the YouTube and the Spotify ones.
True. Yeah, true. So as a percentage of 500,000 users, let's try and boost it up a little and get a few more involved. I don't know how you do that.
I kind of feel like this is like when some YouTubers say like, hey, only like 1% of the people who watch this video are subscribed to our channel. That is not normal.
And I'd just like to say, whenever anyone does say that, I kind of roll my eyes and sigh and go, who cares?
Yeah.
So I'm not even going to bother. So forget everything I said and have a good week, and we'll see you next time.
See you all. Bye-bye. Before we get too tissy, let's jump to the last section of the podcast.